All right, Utah. Oh, hey, Irv. South Africa, Kentucky, hot in Houston. Speaking of, do you remember that show, Hot in Cleveland? Betty White's so good in that show. So good.
Never seen it.
Oh, that's right. Boy, are you trying to say I need more girlfriends? Like, is that?
I've just never seen it. I've never seen that movie. Or is it a TV show?
Fair. It's a TV show. It was a little bit short-lived, but Valerie Bertinelli, Betty White, okay. Like, if you liked the Golden Girls, you would like this. But anyway, hi, welcome everyone. Let me get my screens sorted quickly here. I'm going to stop that. You know, I'm trying to use technology to make it smoother, and you know what's happening is that
it's not.
It's crazy. It's crazy town. No, it might not be achieving exactly what I need. So, well, rats cancel. Now I just need to bear with me again. I'm going to try this. And I'm so nearly, oh yeah. Hey, this is a slideshow, right? Yes.
There it is.
Boy, I don't want to brag, but I'm. Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for your patience. Of course, as always, as we get started here today, I'm just going to move that over there real quickly. So we're going to today welcome, of course, to Deep Dive Live. We're going to talk about something you might be familiar with, or you might be familiar with under a different guise, if you will, or a different phrasing. That is power words, right? And so you guys know I said I wasn't going to do this joke. I'm not going to do it. Can I resist? I'm going to resist. Okay, good. I feel good about it. So for us at AutoCrit, this is a pretty new report, and we're quite excited about it. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about what power words are, how and when to use them, what to think about when you're talking power words and how they come into play with your novel, short story, any of your creative works. Then Kevin's going to show you a bit of a demo in AutoCrit of how the application can help you determine that overall emotional tone of your story. So, of course, we'll go, as is always the case in Deep Dive Live, we will go deeper, talk more about kind of how to true that up and how to get the emotional tone right. So first, I am going to throw it out to the audience like I like to do. And you guys tell me, hey, Steve, I see you got the StreamYard thing going. So you guys tell me, what are power words? And just use the comments to say kind of what you feel a power word is. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Or give an example of one. We are going to do some examples later. So keep your keyboards all warmed up. But thinking about power words, what does that bring to mind for you when you're talking about your works? So we will give everyone a few moments to kind of share your thoughts on what does it mean? It's like an action word. Yeah, good one, Rita. Good one. And it's really, Kevin, what are your thoughts? Since you're kind of in the audience, I'll throw that out to you as well. What comes to mind when you say, a power word? If that's a hint, that's a good hint, right? What do you think, Kevin?
For power words? Oh, I like fascinate or something like, or obliterate, something that's something like that.
Good one. Good one. So we're seeing more answers coming in from the community. It's looking really good out there. I think they get it. We may not have to teach this class. What's going on? So it's action, like pow. Dory got it. right on the head, right? With the onomatopoeia, which I love. I love that word. I just love that word. Who doesn't, right? But thinking about words that have an automatic emotion, feeling, authenticity, they really just have that impact with your reader, right? That you don't have to go into a lot of description. They have a really strong connotation that already conveys that emotion, right? That you as the author are trying to get across to your reader. When you're taking your reader on that journey and you want them to have these feelings, how do you convey that? Is it an imagery? Is it an emotion? Is it a show versus tell, right? So a lot of power words, as we've done over the last 2 weeks, right? A lot of power words don't need adverbs, right? Those good, strong verbs, those good, strong words. And in last week's, they don't, what did we do last week? So in last week, the show versus tell, power words tend to really show, right? They paint that picture, bring those emotions to the surface. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and groups. They could be nouns, they could be verbs, they could be adjectives, like silky, I like that one, sparkly, or they could be adverbs. So, we said 2 times ago, adverbs aren't always bad, right? You don't want to annihilate all of them. See what I did there? But you use them judiciously. And one great way to use adverbs is as a power word. Those power words conveying an emotion, right? And so here at AutoCrit, we've kind of grouped them together into these major groupings of emotion: the fear, encouragement, lust, anger, safety, which is really interesting, the forbidden or the mysterious, and the excitement or the energy. So thinking about the words that you choose within your writing to convey those emotions on purpose, right? And then thinking about the imagery or the feelings that come to mind, depending on the words that you've selected. So thinking about other examples, and I'm gonna, we've gotten some great ones, so I'm just gonna look back through the chat really quick. Oh yeah, I like the visually compelling, the gut-wrenching pull, the destitute, the violated, obliterated, annihilated, just, right? It's just learned you can use too many adverbs. Yes. And too many power words, right?
That's very true.
Right. So let's think about where you would normally find these power words. Kevin, where out in the wild do you find kind of these power words?
Well, as we were talking about this, when we came up with this idea, is a lot of marketing you'll find out there, whether on the internet or on TV, or somebody that's trying to get you to do something or catch your attention. It's usually marketing. So if you watch a lot of marketing copy come by your face, you'll see a lot of power words being used because it does grab you. It creates emotion, or gets your attention. Everybody's trying to grab eyeballs these days, whether it be on the written word or on the computer or on the TV. So marketing is very famous for using power words, and perhaps using too many of them, depending on how it goes, just to get you to click on something or do something. So I think for those marketers out there, the nonfiction people, they're really, really common out there. So that's kind of where you might more typically find them. But as we talk about fiction and nonfiction, you can also work those into the fiction realm as well, very, very easily, as you try to create an emotion in your reader.
Right, absolutely, and I think you nailed it with the phrase that came to mind for me with that is clickbait, right?
Well, yes.
And it could be used for good or evil. Let's say 3 tricks to lower your body fat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But being able to create that feeling of fear or something that's forbidden that you want to get people to come in and read about or to purchase, or, you know, creating that feeling of, oh my goodness, it's a limited time offer, you know, let's get in there really quickly. Discover, experience, tips, tricks, those kinds of things, to really kind of generate a stronger response than, hey, this is a lovely, you know, flower, you should buy it.
Yeah.
It's not as compelling, right? So you're using those power words. Yeah, you're really evoking those emotions and really kind of driving people to a certain place where you want them to be, whether it's a place where they buy something, or an emotional headspace when they're reading your story and they're following. It's fake news. Right? Absolutely. So when you're thinking about how to do that in fiction, making sure that you're very, very aware of your word selection, and not just to kind of be brief and get to the point and carry that pacing along and pull your readers through on that journey, but being aware of the emotional triggers behind very specific words, right? And a lot of that can be summarized. I'm going to give a quick example, and I apologize, I don't have a slide for this. Normally I would. But think about these two sentences. He writhed in agony, and I'm going to make it just me and Kevin, just us. So think about the two sentences. He writhed in agony, right? He writhed in agony. In the other sentence, he was delirious with pain. So he writhed in agony versus he's delirious with pain. So thinking about that, what are the different emotions behind there? They both describe the same thing, basically, right? So it's a character and he's hurting. Probably, you know, physically, but potentially emotionally. No, he's hurting. They both have power words, right? Agony and writhe and delirious and pain, you know, those are really very strong. And they, you know, thinking about where they lie or lay, I can never get those straight, where they appear. Pro tip, when I can't think of the right word to use, I'll just select an entirely different word. Lie and lay on the spectrum. No, where they appear on the spectrum. They really are close to the side of like fear and disgust. They're very uncomfortable. So having that level of emotional control is kind of a subconscious thing, right? So when you're picking these words, writhing in agony, I feel like he's being injured. Someone maybe is attacking him, and it's very fearful and it's very anxious. When you think about delirious with pain, right, then it's a little bit more chaotic. There's just a different energy where you feel just a little bit different. So subconsciously, as the reader, you're really, oh gosh, fantastic comment from the community coming in here. So you're really feeling differently as the reader subconsciously. And one of our viewers says, writhing suggests that he's very much in touch with the pain. He's writhing in agony. He's experiencing that right now. Delirious is kind of that next level up, and it kind of dissociates, and it kind of takes it away from a little bit of a distance. And I feel like that is that, as the reader, kind of what made me feel. Kevin, does that resonate with you?
Definitely. How close are you to it, or did it happen a little bit before and now you're almost ready to pass out because of it, but the actual damage that was inflicted maybe happened minutes ago versus in the immediacy of it. So it kind of speaks to that. And by using these words, it's the show don't tell stuff, where it enables you to show them things and not have to tell them, okay, this happened 5 minutes ago, or if somebody's writhing in agony, then it must have just happened, perhaps. You know, it's kind of one of those
maybe.
just pulling the reader in and not having to tell them everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then thinking about, how that visually comes to mind for your reader. Someone's asking, writhing conjures up a very physical, you can see them on the ground, writhing, wriggling, there, you know exactly what that looks like. Delirious in itself is so abstract that the fact that you can't concretely imagine it gives you a little more sense of how bad it is. Like, this is so bad, I can't even picture it.
Yeah.
So thinking about delirious, you're completely out of your mind with this pain. So it can paint quite a different, picture. So the key here is to kind of be aware, and writhing makes me feel it. Yeah. So having, it really does, but having that thoughtfulness as you go back through and read your work of, what's this conveying to the reader, and how can I get them to really feel, using a different word or two. Sometimes it's not just one word, often it is, but sometimes it's kind of reworking an entire sentence or a small scene, just to tip those power words into a different part of the emotional spectrum, right? And part of what you'll get from things like rereading your work, which we always recommend, and part of what you'll get from using the AutoCrit Power Word Report, which Kevin will show you shortly, you can also really get that from beta readers, right? When you're talking about beta readers, ask them, what kind of emotion did you feel in this chapter, or in the story itself? What was the overwhelming emotional feel? And we'll let Kevin show us some really great comparisons on that shortly as well. So keeping the concept of emotion in your mind, think about as you're writing not just the whole book, but each passage and each chapter, what emotion you're trying to evoke, and think about those words and how they would come into play based on the emotional space that you want your reader to be in, right? And we'll help you with that in terms of how to identify those words, how to see where your tone is overall. You can do it chapter by chapter, right? And as always with AutoCrit, you can upload as much or almost as little text as you want, minimum 250 words. But you can upload a chapter at a time and run this Power Words report chapter over chapter over chapter. If you're a real planner, then you have mapped out kind of an emotional journey for every single chapter. Chapter 1 is going to be about fear. Chapter 2 is going to be about hope. Chapter 3 is going to be about hope. Chapter 4 is going to be fear. So thinking about it at that level lets you analyze, are you hitting that mark chapter over chapter? If you're more of a pantser, you can do the whole story, come back up for that bird's eye view and look across your whole story, and we'll give you that overview of whatever segment you've put in, whether it's your chapter, your whole book, a handful of chapters, whatever that is. What we're seeing is the most successful books, and as you know, AutoCrit built on actual best-selling books. What our research is finding is, and Kevin, tell me if this is right, that the most successful books really are focusing at 2, 3, maybe 4 major emotional themes, right?
Definitely.
So not really, it's really compelling. It's very focused. They have a very specific journey they want to take you on. And, 3, I think, seems to be kind of that magic number.
Well, and it's kind of goes to what genre are you writing into? I mean, what are you trying to, are you in horror? Are you in romance? So if you kind of go in and your readers have a somewhat expectation out there of what they're going to see and what they're going to experience. Is it going to be something that's very lazy and relaxing, or is it going to be something at the edge of my seat where I have to hold on and I can't put the book down because it's a it's a drama and somebody's chasing somebody throughout the whole entire book. So you kind of set an expectation, and then when you use the words you choose, you kind of have to live up to it a little bit. Otherwise people feel like, oh, I thought I was going to read an action and it was a romance. I got upset. I put the book down. What is this? So it's maybe not that dramatic, but in subtle ways, when you choose your power words, in a certain sense, you are validating what you're trying to portray. And a lot of times it's validating your genre that you've chosen to write in. So some of the real successful ones, they really hone in and they stick to it and they deliver what they promise with the book cover and the genre. But this is this is you're delivering what you promised your reader there. And so you can't really go wrong with that. So not to say that you can't spread out and have some different flavor in there, but boy, when you look at the big picture and you step back and look at it, what were you trying to accomplish here with this? What kind of emotion were you trying to bring forth? And that's kind of deals with a lot of the words you chose.
Absolutely. I've heard it's funny. I was just speaking with an author earlier this week, which I guess was just yesterday because it's only Tuesday.
It's early.
Yeah. So, hey, yesterday I was speaking with an author who was saying, I went into my latest novel with such a plan, right? It was going to be a fun, uplifting. And then, I had this minor character and I thought, I am planning to kill you off very quickly. Didn't happen that way. The book kind of took its own journey and, she's a pantser. So let's see where the book goes on its own. In terms of like, oh, I thought it was going to be fun, uplifting, and it took a little bit of a dark turn and it worked out really well. So, right. So sometimes you start out thinking you're writing a romance and it turns into a thriller or something different, but that's okay. It's all about, having that story and getting it out there and sharing your work with the world. Quick comment from the community, Kevin, before I hand it over to you. We mentioned that a lot of the research that we've done is showing that a lot of books, a lot of these best-selling books that AutoCrit is built upon really focus on three major ones. So I wanted to bring back up, this is my example result pie chart from our old favorite, Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I like that I rehearsed saying the word onomatopoeia and did fine. Kafka, of all of the things. So this actually kind of shows a little bit around, you can see the three sections that are predominant, right? And Kafka, as we know, a little bit of an interesting writer. He's got a lot of lust there, which is surprising for Metamorphosis. I think we can all agree. But the three primaries are fear, encouragement, and greed, right? So Gregor is turned into this, I don't know, bug, for lack of a better phrase. I forgot. That's just a lot of fear. But, he's very positive about it. So there's a lot of encouragement there. And then you get into his job as a salesman, and that's just a ton of greed. You can see, of course, there are other emotions playing through there because there are tons of other characters, and there are, his family and the manager and the doctor from the insurance company. But there are a lot of other things at play, but you can definitely see those kind of top three that are coming through. And I know, Kevin, you have some fantastic examples of this. So I am going to switch over to your screen.
Sure.
Fantastic. And I'm going to take us out. I'm going to make this screen as big as I can for you.
Okay, sure. That sounds great. So thanks for dropping over to me, Beth. As we mentioned, power words, they're trying to evoke some sort of emotion. But their true impact can go much deeper than that. And I think you kind of, as we've talked about it for the first section here, you kind of understand this. So I'm going to go ahead and show some examples of some pretty famous works, some old and some new. In this case, we're going to look at Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. So it's a very famous, older work that has pirates and adventure, and it's pretty much, you would call it a young adult or a young, adventure story for more of the younger generation. Maybe you've read it when you were young with Tom Sawyer, perhaps, or something along those lines. But so it's definitely geared towards a younger audience with an adventure, and so it's playful and it's exciting and it moves from one step to the next. So let's check out our summary here on the power words. And we'll see that sure enough, it has a lot of encouragement. It has some fear because they're being chased by pirates, and they're also searching for treasure. So the greed is up there. So this is kind of the three pillars here. And then I find it interesting, and we'll see as we look at a couple more books, the lust factor is down low because it's for a kid's book. It's for young adults. So we don't have a lot of lusty romance in this book. It's a pirate adventure with a bunch of guys in a pirate ship. So it's pretty exciting. It also has not too much anger in it because it's for kids. So anyway, I kind of find it interesting to look at some of the overall feel of where the pie chart fills here with your choice of words. And when you come into the AutoCrit screen, you can see the specific words that fall into each category, and we color coded them. So in fear, in this case, it's that odd looking yellow color, I guess. And then the forest green would be the greed. But then you see here, you got danger, the gun fired, death, and death. These are all fear words, and lost would be more in the forbidden category. So it's pretty exciting to get to see as you scroll through your work where you're using the words you're using. And on the right sidebar here, not only can we see the overall categories, I think it's fun to see, okay, obviously it's Treasure Island, so treasure is the number one power word you got there as under the greed category. And then if you click on category, you can also sort by the specific words in each category: encouragement, fear. So you can kind of play around with data a lot of different ways. You can look at the most used, or you can look at it by category. So let's jump to another interesting book to look at. This would be Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. So this, on the other hand, is not a children's book. It's more of it's a vampire story. So we're expecting to see a lot more fear come out of this one. And sure enough, the fear is much bigger. And also, as most people are familiar with, vampire stories often have a lot of lust, and a lot of passionate things going on.
What is with those vampires?
It's the duality of a vampire story. And honestly, we were also talking about that. It's one of the reasons why vampire stories can have such a wide-ranging appeal, because people get a lot from it. There's some romance to them. There's scary. There's horror. There's, they kind of feed off of each other a little bit. No pun intended there.
Kevin, that's you and true. I need to. Yeah, no. I admire that. That's
so. As we look through a section here, you'll see quite clearly what the author is going for. They have death, blood, death. So you really get that feeling of, wow, this is it's a vampire book, So you're kind of delivering what you promised to that extent as you go through it, and you'll see mostly fear words. There's anger words, so that's where we're at. Now I'm going to go to the next one, and we'll jump back and we'll kind of compare them all side by side at the end. I think you'll find it interesting. But let's jump to another work we have.
As you're about to jump over to that, just a shameless plug. Anne Rice was our author that we added last month. So she is our most recent author edition. We do have another new author coming later this month, but the April author was Anne Rice. And so our team did one of our What's the Score blog posts on this exact story, Interview with a Vampire. So if anyone out there is interested, I just happen to have a quick banner of that. Visit the blog and look for What's the Score. When I went there earlier today, the Anne Rice Interview with a Vampire, What's the Score was the top blog post. It was just right there front and center. So a fascinating deep dive into kind of a full analysis of a very popular best-selling novel that kind of breaks it down within the AutoCrit categories, including power words. So if you're interested in seeing more about Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, visit the blog. And back to you, Kevin.
No problem. And before I jump off, I just was looking over here, and you can see the top words, power words used are death, kill, blood, and love. So that kind of speaks vampire, right? If you told me the top four words you think of, you'd kind of think of those kind of words were being used a lot. And so that's This is one of those reports that I like to put the fun factor in, because you typically come down towards the end of the writing and editing phase when you start looking at things like this, when you start feeling, well, what kind of emotion am I pulling out? This is kind of the fun thing to come back and look at your work and say, hey, did I achieve what I was trying to do? Am I using the words that I should be? Am I getting that emotion that I'm trying to drive forward? And so, this is kind of fun to look at and near the end of your writing here. So let's jump over to my last work, and this is Virgin River by, Robin Carr. The name escaped my mind there for a second. Robin Carr. So this is more of a romance. And as we look at the words that pop up here, we see love, passionate love, and we check the overall score. Sure enough, the lust factor has gone way up, and it's actually the same size as the fear factor in this case. So in the encouragement. So this is a lot of, positive lust going on here in this book, for lack of a better word there.
Just looking at that pie, those three constitute approximately 75% of the power words in that entire novel, right?
Yes. And these are it's not unusual for fear to be a big part, because obviously typically we're trying to in a book, hopefully, gauge some sort of interest in making people afraid of something, or being chased by something, or being something bad happening. There's usually something not always good happening to your protagonist. You try to put them in awful situations a lot of times just to, give you something to talk about in your story for the most part. So it's very usual to have these three here play a big role in your work. So it's very common, but it's just a distribution of them that's kind of interesting as well. So
yes.
So in an interesting one here, I saw, I won't go too deep into Robin Carr and her virgin here, but one look at her in those tight jeans, and he was in agony. So here we have, obviously, this is kind of a romance type story where, somebody's lusting after somebody else, but you'll notice that she chose to use, a lot of lusty type words, and also threw in a fear word in the same sentence. So it's kind of like that writhing in agony that we talked about earlier when you brought up, Beth. So sometimes it's good to mix your power words together, but just be cautious of it. But this can create a really powerful sentence when you throw two words in there, and they don't always have to be in the same category. And so you kind of get it's kind of a powerful experience for somebody reading that, and it obviously really engages your audience. So I thought it was interesting, to look at some of these sentences where you throw a couple power words in there, as it really pulls you in and gets you to definitely have a feeling about something. So anyway, we'll go back to more PG writing here. So let me throw up the summaries on each one of these so we can kind of jump back and forth, and I'll show you how they look when you kind of hit them back and forth. Sorry for me jumping around so much. So I jump back here to, this is Treasure Island, and this is the pie chart we have here with its mix, and we'll switch over to Interview with a Vampire, which you see the fear just jump up and the lust jump up. And then finally, we go back to less fear and more lust with Virgin River. So if you want to compare your works together, you can really see how the pie chart changes as your genre changes, and as the type and style of writing changes, and who's your audience. Obviously this one's, it's more for the younger generation here. And then as you go over here, this is more for the romance and the positive encouragement. This one's for the fear. So you can I always think it's fun when I look at these works to just jump from one to the next really quick, and you can see how the landscape changes with each work.
I love that. And it makes it so clear with that visual, seeing the greed go down and the lust go up, and then, being able to run your own work through this and compare it to a different genre. So we are in, Kevin, are we in general fiction right now?
Yeah, the other ones I was in general fiction. Yes, let's go here.
Okay.
I didn't really change out of general fiction for it, but you absolutely can. And in this case, for power words, it's more finding those words, and it's kind of irrelevant as far as what genre we have chosen for this specific one, because we're just simply if it lands in that category, we're going to count it and show it for you.
That makes sense.
Changing the genre doesn't really have much of an impact on the power words themselves, because obviously any genre can use power words. In fact, we recommend all genres use them, of course.
Yes, so the takeaway here is power words. Yes.
Yes. Yes, to a certain extent. Obviously, just like, you don't want your reader's mind to be a punching bag either. If you're using all these really strong words, you keep hitting them and hitting them and hitting them with them, it could be overwhelming to a certain extent if you don't do it well. Or maybe you're writing that action, thriller. Then how many, some readers maybe expect that, or if you go into an action film, where how many explosions can you possibly put into a 1 hour film? It can be, you can go overboard with it, I feel, but it's obviously you're trying to write to your audience and kind of give them what they expect to a certain extent on that. And similarly, I just had one other interesting thing here, and I just remembered in this Virgin River story, one of the characters' names is actually Hope, which is an encourage power word. So it's kind of another thought and wrinkle on this is, if you choose your name of your character as a power word, I mean, obviously, hope is positive, and it kind of gives you a picture in your mind already just by giving the character's name. So when you choose your character's name, obviously, Maleficent isn't going to be your happy good person in the story if you're writing a Disney type style. So it's just kind of interesting that when you throw this in there, that even though it might be the character's name, it still has a meaning and an emotion tied to it. It evokes something in the mind of your reader, even though it's a character's name. So choose your character name wisely, I guess you could say, in this, because it kind of all folds into the same thing if it's a power word in that nature.
Yeah, if you're writing a story and you name character Hope, that's probably not an accident, that you're trying to evoke, that more emotional, perspective. If you're writing a vampire story and your heroine's name is Hope, I feel like she's a good candidate to be killed off very, very early in the book.
Never know.
George R. R. Martin style. So fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to switch back. Actually, let's bring us back. We're bringing us back and the pie chart. So a couple of questions coming through on the community that I wanted to talk about real quickly. One, so we want to increase or decrease the number of power words? What does the count mean? I have some thoughts on that. Kevin, what are your thoughts first?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, like I mentioned about the action film. How much power words do you want to jam in there? So from an emotional landscape, you got to kind of picture your novel from an emotional side. Is it a flat plain? Is it the ocean? Nothing? Or are you somewhere with lots of mountains and things that spike up? Well, the things that spike up and change and move, I would consider to be more power words, that are things that are pulling or pushing or doing something to your reader in that fashion. So what are you trying to do? So there's no right or wrong answer to it, but I think in any extent, for some readers, you can go too far, and in the worst case, probably would be go not far enough, and it's boring. You don't want that. That's the worst. But you can also push and pull too much to where it can become slightly annoying, or it to a certain level becomes cliche as you write. If you keep, pow, 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 all this, it becomes to a point where it becomes repetitious on the other extreme, where it's like, I can't read this anymore. This is just, it's the same. There's I'm reading, Game of Thrones or something, and there's a battle every chapter, and somebody in the main character dies. Like, geez, this is terrible. But some people might like that. If that's your audience, they expect the battle every chapter. They expect somebody's head to be cut off with a knife or whatever, so they need those things in order to feel like they've had an enjoyable experience with your novel. So it kind of, I don't like not giving you better advice than that, but really it kind of depends on your beta readers and your reader. Who are you trying to deliver this enjoyable experience to?
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I think the flip side of not having enough power words in there, where it becomes a little bit tedious and boring and it's not engaging, so you're not able to pull your readers along on that journey. The flip side is, reading a Batman comic, pow, bam, that too much, but done that way on purpose, right? If you're writing a pulp fiction work, then go overboard, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they expect. It's what they want.
Campy and just over the top. Absolutely. Being able to make those levels of determination are fully within the author's hands. George R. R. Martin loves to, like, I will never forget the first time I read the very first chapter, I think, of the first book of the Game of Thrones, the whole thing. And I was like, okay, what just happened? I love this person, this character. Immediately he's dead. And I called my friend on the phone, just furious that he had recommended such a travesty to me. And he laughed, much like you're laughing now, Kevin. He's like, isn't it great? I'm like, no. And now I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. That's his thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The beauty of his writing. So being able to make that decision, you know, always with AutoCrit, keep in mind, you're the creative force. We're here to share information and share data with you, and kind of like identify some things, and then let you make those decisions. And of course, I have a banner for that. The 4 R's, right? Do you want to replace it? Do you want to remove it? Do you want to reword it? Or do you want to reject the suggestion? That is totally fine, because you are still in control. Of course, AutoCrit can make suggestions, but they're not mandates. You know, maybe Gregor needed 29 encouraging indicators because he's having a rough day turning into a bug. And that's great. As the author, you're always in control with that, and making those decisions. So the couple of last tips that I want to leave you with around power words, right? Thinking about the emotional journey that you want to take your readers on. And one of our colleagues had this really great analogy, right? Think of your work as a museum, an art gallery, and whatever. You have these beautiful works, and you want to put them in their best light. So you've spent a lot of time with the umbrellas and the fades, the bouncer. You've got this amazing lighting, and then all of a sudden, like, you tweak one thing wrong, and that painting of a bunny now looks like a monster. Parents are ushering their small children away like it's a terrifying experience. Yeah. It just went from wholesome and encouraging and uplifting to nightmares that I can never wake from. You know, that level of word choice, it's an extreme example, but that can happen because small changes can make such a big impact in your work.
Especially in the first chapters and places where you're trying to really pull your reader in. That's the critical piece. You got to get your tone right and your words right right at the beginning.
Setting the tone to bring them in and give them a little bit of an expectation. You know, and maybe that first chapter isn't heavily skewed one way or the other. Maybe it is. It just depends on what journey you want to take them on. And the converse of that, Kevin, is the kind of the end chapters, right? Yep. So think about having this horror story that's been kind of relentless throughout. It is terrifying. It is nightmare bunny painting all the time. And then at the end, the bunny's not evil at all. And it's happy and it's upbeat and everything is great. You know, is that the feeling you want them to take away? Yeah. Is that, you know, do you want to wipe out the 20 chapters of horror with a really overloaded, you know, encouragement, love, you know, whatever type of ending? If that's not what you want, then think about tempering it a little bit, right? To get a little bit better balance across your first 20 chapters and that last one, because you want to leave that impression in your readers' minds. You want them to think back on your story and go, oh, that wasn't that scary, you know.
Yeah. Or it can go the opposite. Think of a story like of Mice and Men or something. If you've ever, you know, Steinbeck's the ending is the complete opposite. It was kind of and then all of a sudden at the end it's shocking, right? What happened? And so obviously the plays into your story arc and your story, but your power words kind of flow in there too. But what kind of feeling do you want your reader to have at that moment? And if your idea is to be has a shocking ending, maybe people are going to hate it or love it or whatever, but just kind of being aware of what it is you're doing. That's kind of what AutoCrit helps you do from an automated standpoint, just to make sure you're achieving your goal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So final tip from us at AutoCrit. A lot of our authors find this to be really, really helpful. Before you start writing, think about, even if you're a pantser, think about the 2 or 3 major emotions that you want to drive with your story. And then put some sticky notes up around your monitor or typewriter or iPad or notepad or whatever, but keep a visual of some of those power words and the emotional evocation that goes along with those words. And then those you can go straight to and think, oh, yep, I'm going to use I need a little sprinkling of blush. So let's talk about how I can work in some of those words. And let's talk about how, think about how I'm getting my emotional journey map on course. And those sticky notes, those visual indicators, are often just really helpful to keep it genuinely front and center, front of mind for you all the time, to be thoughtful about your power words and the conscious and subconscious emotions that they'll bring to mind or bring to bear on your readers as they read your work. So that is what we have for today for power words. As always, I have a call to action for you to go into AutoCrit and take one of your chapters or one of your stories. Think about, before you do it, think about which of these categorizations you believe you've achieved in that piece of work. Then run the power words report and see where your pie chart comes up, right? So being able to identify, and I'm going to put Kevin's screen back up, it's a little more dynamic. Being able to run that power words report, and could you just show us what tab that's under? It's under word selection, right?
And then word choice. Word choice, and then power words over here. Yes.
So take a work of yours, think beforehand the 1, 2, maybe 3 top emotions you believe are going to come through when you run this report. Then run the report and see if you were right. And then think about, go through some of those words as Kevin showed you, how to sort them, how to group them, how to highlight them in your work, and discover a little bit more about how your story is evolving and how you're thinking. So that is my challenge for you today.
And have fun doing it.
Oh, as always, have fun. That is the base. Have fun doing everything. If you are a free forever user, this is a paid report, so it is available only to our professional and elite members. If you are free forever, we do still have a $1 offer for you. So if you missed out on that pro trial to begin with, I just think it would be such a fun exercise for you to run power words on your work, because I love a good pie chart. Am I right? Also pie in general. But running this report, I think, is just so interesting and revealing. Ping this link if you need the $1 offer to get into your professional trial for 14 days. Otherwise, run those power words reports and see if you nailed it. See if you need to tweak it or you want to tweak it to take that journey where you want it to go. And as a reminder, we did do that Anne Rice, What's the Score, which was fascinating because vampires. So if you want more information on that, you can see the full What's the Score on our blog. And I believe that we are a wrap for today. Kevin?
I'm great.
All right. Let's say goodbye and let everybody get to work on the Power Words report. See you next time.